Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
That's a nice hat you got there, Doc. Where'd you get that hat?
I can't say. I'm just get a lot of compliments on it.
It's kind of like the Indiana Jones hat there.
I just assume you kept your hands off of it.
Will do, Doc. Oh, so much to talk about with Alfred University Professor Emeritus of Political Science, Dr. Robert Heineman, starting out with Gina Haspel. Gets the Senate okay for the CIA chief's position to vote 54-45. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it is generally seen as a really wise nomination by President Trump, and I think part of the proof of the pudding in this is basically that a number of Democrats crossed the aisle to support her. Now, most of those Democrats, I think you'll find, are in states that Trump carried very heavily and are up for re-election. So I think a number of them decided maybe they better get on the boat here. But nonetheless, it's a good thing. And I would guess, Brian, that if we were to sit and talk to this lady, you would find that she's probably a very bright person. But, you know, she has given her position in the CIA over the years. I don't think there's not too much in terms of public appearances or statements that she's ever made, which is probably a good thing, too. But now, I think it's probably a move in the right direction, absolutely.
If you listen to AM 1480 WLEA on Thursday, you heard the voices of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, the two New England senators there, bashing Gina Haspel. The big issue there, torture. Rand Paul, the Libertarian Republican, was on their side on that one. Your thoughts on this whole torture issue?
Well, there's... again, two sides to the thing, and I guess it's possible that we picked up some useful information from that. I think basically what they're talking is waterboarding. I'm not certain there's any other kind of torture that we're
that was the
about.
Big thing.
Yeah. Enhanced
interrogation, Doc.
That's what they call it, yes. And... you know, it may have paid off. I guess if it did, I don't have too many concerns about it. But I do think it does raise serious moral issues, and a number of, you know, pretty knowledgeable intelligence people take the position that it really is pretty counterproductive, that you get a lot more from these people by sitting down, offering them a cigarette, and talking to them about their family and whatever, and eventually getting something out of them. Now, of course, some of them are real hard cases. It may be a lot more difficult in that respect. But the problem with torture is it does cross this whole line of trying to present ourselves as a morally upright nation, and to go around and engage in this kind of activity, I think we don't need to do that. On the other hand, you have the other approach, which is rendition, where we turn some of these people over to the Egyptians or the Saudis and let them do the interrogation, which, as you can imagine, doesn't really pay too much to the Miranda warnings when they're in that situation. Of course, that's raised a lot of questions as well, and I would guess Elizabeth Warren and Bernie are probably pretty unhappy about that. But that, from our perspective, I guess, allows us to kind of wash our hands into this whole torture issue.
I want to get back to Gina Haspel in just a moment, but Senator John McCain was in and out of the news this past couple of weeks for alleged statements from White House staffers leaked to the press.
Right.
The White House staffers are supposed to have said about McCain weighing in on the issue of the torture. Well, McCain's dying anyway. It doesn't really matter what he says. And there was a lot of offense taken to that. McCain's daughter demanded an apology. Apparently the White House didn't make one because it was a leak.
Yeah. Well, I think what you have there is a number of factors, as often the case. First of all, we don't know whether that was said in jest whether that was just an off-the-cuff comment that whoever was speaking made. And it's a pretty cold statement. There's no question about it. And certainly you wouldn't want to be making a statement like that in public. I mean, there's no question McCain is, I think, a legitimate American hero given his service in Vietnam and such. That doesn't mean you have to pay much attention to him. But I think the other side of it is that obviously in the White House and in these kinds of situations, in many ways the State Department was the worst in my experience in terms of stabbing people in the back, leaking embarrassing information to embarrass somebody that you're competing with or don't like. And that's pretty clearly what happened here, I think. So Trump has on his staff there people basically waiting to stab each other in the back. Not a healthy situation.
Yeah, Brian Kilmeade on Fox News Radio said that it's Bush administration people who are in the Trump White House who are probably making, no, he said who are making these leaks. He was pretty affirmative
it could well be. It's not a healthy situation. Although Trump, basically, experience I've had with him, which is not firsthand, but with people who've worked with him, does encourage differences of opinion and wants to hear both sides and arguments both ways. So having people from a variety of different views in there, from Trump's point of view, is a good thing because he's getting both sides of the issue as such. But when it reaches the point where you get these personal vendettas playing out, and again, what was leaked was not obviously a threat to national security or anything of that sort. So I don't think it's just a nasty thing, and it's unfortunate that McCain has to put up with that. Whether I guess in my situation I would have fired the person, not that I wouldn't have, and I don't know whether it was a woman or man. I'm thinking it was a woman who said it, but you can always hire her back in 5 or 6 weeks, just to let people know, it was pretty outrageous, which it was. But again, it might have been just something somebody said in passing back and forth of some sort. And
on Gina Haspel, Dr. Heineman, will her presence at the CIA help the intelligence community's reputation with the conservatives? Now, with the liberals, they'll be, she's torture, she's bad. What about the conservatives? How will the conservatives see her? Because the intelligence community's reputation with the conservatives is not too high right now because of the back and forth between them and Donald Trump.
Well, I think the first step here is to make sure that the CIA is functioning with a little esprit de corps at this point. And I think you're right. I think their morale has probably here and there been pretty low. But I do think she's a professional, and I think she's kind of pretty much no nonsense. So I would expect that her appointment will give the people in the intelligence community a little bit of a sense that they got somebody there whom they can depend on. And she doesn't strike me as the sort of person that's going to kowtow or change directions just because there's some sort of political pressure. In fact, there'd be no reason for her to do that. So I think in that sense, the better agency you got working there, the more effective they are. I wouldn't worry too much about the ideological side of it. But again, as you say, I don't think you're going to satisfy the liberals one way or another. I do see that some of the polls have Elizabeth Warren pretty much ahead here as a candidate for the 2020 election, which I think we should encourage her, Maxine Waters.
Do you think that
Nancy
Governor Andrew
Pelosi
Cuomo would take the number 2 spot with Elizabeth Warren?
Well, I guess if he could get it, he would. He may not be in a position to be all that attractive by 2020.
With the upcoming trials of the Buffalo Billion and whatnot coming up.
Yeah, he may not even be governor. Oh. Yes.
Moving on to North Korea, it looks like Kim Jong-un is backing out of the peace talks that they were going to have there with President Trump. Some have speculated that that's because Trump has been talking too much in terms of saying, this is great, I'm the only one that could have done this, I'm the only one that could have gotten Kim Jong-un to the table, and that was a turnoff. What do you think of that analysis?
Well, I think there are a number of things here as well. First of all, Kim Jong-un did not come to the table, I think what we might say voluntarily. I think the context of all this is that these sanctions and Trump's promise to annihilate him if he does anything aggressive all played a role. But I think the sanctions have been hurting him a lot because the Chinese and other countries have come in very heavily on those sanctions. And Kim Jong-un's whole, I think, goal in life is to maintain a position of power in North Korea, and the more the population is hurt, becomes restive, the more dangerous it is to him. So I think the advantage of getting involved and negotiating was that he was getting a lot of credit for moving in this direction, and in turn would get a lot of credit if the sanctions were released and people could live a halfway nourished life in the future. So there's a lot in there for him. And the comments by Trump, and I haven't seen that many of those, but there have really been some. Again, the press is such a dangerous, nasty form or media that anything they can do to question or undercut Trump, they'll do. Now, they haven't been as bad this time around because I think they do realize that we're talking about a serious international crisis here. But still, you get all these nuances of what Trump meant and what he's doing. I do think that the one thing that Kim Jong-un is concerned about is some sort of non-aggression pact that says that the United States and South Korea promised not to invade North Korea. And so what do we do then is hold these huge military maneuvers.
Kim Jong-un did not like that.
No, and I don't blame him. It's very threatening to him. You got to understand what the guy's mindset is here. And obviously it's very threatening. And I think obviously that really got him worried. We did back down a little bit on some of it and, diluted some of the military hardware we're bringing in there, but I don't know if that will work or not. So I assume that there are negotiations going on furiously here to kind of keep this thing on track.
Question on North Korea and Kim Jong-un and Trump. Will Trump, building this strong relationship with the head of China, Xi Jinping there, will that help patch things up with Kim Jong-un in North Korea?
Well, I think it's to China's advantage to get this thing under control as well, and I think they've played a very important role in moving this along. So I assume we're asking the Chinese to help us out again and keep this guy halfway mollified. So if he's satisfied that we're backing off a little bit, I think things may well move forward. But again, this is a sort of situation that if Trump doesn't keep his mouth shut, the whole thing could go down the tank pretty fast.
Taking a quick break, checking the weather. We'll be back, Dr. Bob.
The DJ you should hire listens to you about the kind of party or reception you'd like to have, pronounces your name right, plays the music you request, not the songs he feels like hearing. The DJ you should hire works out the songs ahead of time with you. Sean Stewart, DJ Truth, for all occasions, weddings, dances, graduations, anniversaries, and parties. 661-7658, 661-7658, 661-7658 for Sean Stewart, DJ Truth.
Meteorologist Rob Carolyn on the line. He's saying that today is nice, but...
Bad day today, Brian, but not so good as we head into the weekend, unfortunately. It has been raining since Tuesday to our south. Baltimore and Washington, they have all types of flooding issues. And unfortunately, just in time for the weekend, that rain is going to be working its way northward into the southern tier. A little bit of cloudiness out there this morning, but it will thin enough that we end up with a partly sunny day. High pressure to our north in Quebec and Ontario should lead to highs of 65 to 70 this afternoon. Sunrise this morning was at 5:45. Sunset this evening at 8:28. Now tonight we'll see clouds roll in. By morning there'll be a few showers. They'll be coming up from the south. Lows tonight 50 to 55. Showers are likely tomorrow. Temperatures, they'll be somewhere between 65 and 70. We'll have more showers tomorrow night. Lows dropping down to 55 to 60. Sunday mostly cloudy, a chance for showers near 70. And it looks like we could be dealing with a few more showers right into Monday, though. We're going to try to clear things out and get some sunshine in here by midday Monday, Brian.
We're not getting heavy winds, though, right?
It does not look like we have any winds in the forecast for either Saturday or Sunday. The wind should remain relatively light.
Back with Dr. Bob.
Oh, hello. Yes.
Wanted to talk quickly on some state issues again, as we did in the first segment. Cynthia Nixon made the New York Post Thursday afternoon. It had a huge crowd at the subways, which has been having problems lately. Cynthia Nixon gave a speech and pointed her finger directly at Albany and Governor Andrew Cuomo for not, she says, ignoring the problem
Right.
for the last 8 years.
Right.
Is that going to resonate with New York City?
Oh,
Is that going to get her in there?
Yeah, and I think it resonates with de Blasio, because I think de Blasio has been blaming Cuomo as well. So the whole idea for Nixon here is to cut into the vote turnout that you're going to get, that Cuomo would expect from the city. And if you can hold that down, it's certainly going to help her. So some photo ops in that respect, I think, are going to be pretty effective. Now, if she just keep her mouth shut, I think that would be even more effective. But
Now,
that's going to happen.
a Cuomo administration official, according to BuzzFeed, they say that a Cuomo administration official say that demographically, Cynthia Nixon's numbers probably won't be good with African Americans, and that was a problem for Zephyr Teachout last time Zephyr Teachout ran against Governor Cuomo.
Yeah, I'm not certain Cuomo's graphics with African Americans is going to be all that great.
Okay, moving on to Israel. The embassy move. Your analysis of what happened then
Well,
last
I think the
Sunday.
thing with the embassy move to Jerusalem, basically, Trump's view was, of course, he's got Kushner and his daughter Ivanka, Ivanka being a converted Jew and Kushner, of course, being Jewish. Basically, I'm sure backing the Netanyahu position. But looking at it in historical terms, the United States has been making this promise and suggesting they're going to do it and pushing negotiations and such. And, of course, it really has gone nowhere. And so Trump's approach is, well, basically, let's just do it. And once it's done, there's not a heck of a lot of anything anybody can do about it. And so, in a sense, I kind of give him credit for that. Now, to the Turkish president or Prime Minister Erdogan now has called for Islamic move against Israel, that all the Muslims should unite against Israel because of this kind of move. That's not going to go anywhere either, but you do, I think, see Turkey and Israel coming closer and closer to confrontation, and that's a problem because, of course, Turkey is a member of NATO. And this guy Erdogan is clearly moving to a much more fundamentalist Islamic control of Turkey, and, of course, Turkey becoming a republic way back there, the 1920s or whatever. The whole key was for Turkey to break up this church-state situation and become more focused on a secular government. And that's been a key element for a huge section of the Turkish population in the 20th century. And Erdogan is clearly moving against that. And so I don't know. I think there's, but his authoritarian approach, he's thrown a heck of a lot of people in jail, and of course he claims that there was a revolution in the making against him, and he threw a lot more people in jail. And a lot of people think he may have sort of concocted that just to get some of his opponents, put them in jail. So far there haven't been any, as far as I know, any mass executions or anything of that sort. But it's a pretty ugly situation there in Turkey. And it's really unfortunate. Turks are very good people, and they've been very supportive of us over the years. But this is definitely deteriorating. I might note as well that we had a recent election in Iraq with this guy al-Sadr, S-A-D-R, I think it is, a strong Shiite, won the largest portion of parliamentary seats. And he is a strong Iranian supporter. I remember years ago when we were going into Mosul, he was leading the Shiites against us, and we very much would have liked to got hold of him, but he spent his time in Iran. They gave him refuge. But what's interesting is, as far as I can tell, he has reached out for some of the other parties in Iraq, and even though he's not a big friend of the United States by any means, he clearly seems to be willing to try to build a majority coalition. And of course, that's what politics is all about. So it may actually turn out to be a reasonably constructive thing. But obviously, Iraq looking more and more like a democracy, which means
Dr. Bob,
disorganized and whatever.
Final question.
Oh, yes.
Rudy Giuliani. He's been saying that the Mueller team cannot indict or subpoena President Donald Trump, and the media poo-poos it. The left-wing media poo-poos everything that Rudy says. Is Rudy a help or a hindrance?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. We'll just have to watch how that plays out. Certainly, Rudy's attempt to get as much photo time as he can rivals that of Donald Trump. So I don't know if these guys are going to work particularly well together or not. Certainly, you would think Rudy had some idea how federal prosecutors and such work, he having been one himself. But it's just the whole thing is so complicated that it's hard to make any kind of definitive statement. Well, it's impossible to make any kind of definitive statement. Although I do think releasing all those transcripts from the meetings they had in Trump Towers there shows really there's nothing much there at all, which is what Trump has been saying all along.
There's no there, and what does that do to the media as far as viewership goes? Because some of these networks have been hurting a lot in the ratings.
I would say this. That does... I think the media, people have had enough. Now, what's really interesting is this upcoming wedding with Prince Harry and Meghan, Markle?
Markle. Why so?
Because it's clearly an example of the media trying to create something of interest to the American public. And I would say this, the American public are going to be so tired of watching this royal wedding that they're going to be heading for their DVDs or the local baseball game or something. I mean, it's that.
Will that have any effect on the Trump coverage when they go back to it?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's an example of the media really trying to construct something they think is important. And as you may recall, back in 1776, we pretty much decided we didn't need any royalty. And frankly, I don't think we need a heck of a lot today either. So the Brits, go ahead, have a great time, but I think Americans got other things on their mind.
Dr. Bob, I'm offended. I have cousins in London.
Well, as long as you don't name them, I think they're safe.